But this is not to Thunderdome and it's not to the road race track, it's to Supercross. They've had motocross here once before a long time ago in the middle of the Calder road race circuit, but tonight they've set up a unique circuit for Australia. This is the first circuit we've ever seen like the Los Angeles Coliseum that goes up a hill into the crowd, turns around and comes back down into the infield, and it is a unique event for a couple of occasions. This is possibly the biggest ever prize money offered for a Supercross anywhere in the world. $60,000 on offer for the night, $15,000 for first place. The track has 30 jumps and stutters over its roughly 700 metres length, and now it's raining. It should be a beauty.
Craig Dack is back and out to attack you tonight. What do you think of Craig? I understand you're pretty good mates off the track, but out there the rivalry would be pretty harsh tonight, I would think.
Oh yeah, you know, with that much prize money up for grabs, you know, and he's been trying to knock me off for the last couple of weeks, and you know, he hasn't been successful, so I'm just going out there to ride my best, ride the track as fast as I can and try to beat everyone on the line.
Well, Glenn and I are good friends off the track. However, we are very competitive towards each other on the track. We both have a lot of respect for each other. We know each other's moves aren't going to be too dangerous. So we can race head to head and not worry about each other doing something very stupid. So obviously he's the man to beat.
This is where things get tough. The first semi-final, A and B grade riders, 250cc machines, 5 laps, and just one race gap for those 3 that were first, third and 5th in the last chance qualifier. So a packed field and a quality field. Look at them. Number 4, Stephen Andrew. Number 2, Craig Dack. K is Daryl King from New Zealand. 12 is James Deacon. And S, one of the absolute flyers, Shane King from New Zealand. 7, Lyndon Heffernan. And 9, Troy Doran. And 20 on the Kawasaki, Jason Hill. And 16, Stan Bergen from Outrider Midnight Racing. 17, David Armstrong crashed in his heat earlier on. 58. 35 is Ian Marlowe. 34 and 24. 34 Glenn Smith and 24 Steve Morris. And that's just some of the 18 lining up for this first semi-final, the first 10 only, to the final, to race 15. So nearly half the field will miss out. This is where they really have to get serious. Almost see the tension, the concentration. And then it all bursts free as they blast away for just 5 laps, 5 minutes of sliding and jumping and bumping and trying to get on into the final. And the man doing it best of them all is number 4, Stephen Andrew.
With Dacky up on the inside, he'll be pushing to get out in front as early as possible because the semi means a lot to him.
Shane King's in a good position too on S. Up the hill for the first time, and the place absolutely reverberating with the 250cc engines screaming. So that is it. It's Andrew and Dack and King on 4, 2 and S in the first 3 positions. Behind them 7 others at the moment who are looking good, and 8 others, positions 11 to 18, who are in big trouble and have to go fast very soon. The time's a hot one, 50 seconds from the start line, and the styling, and Dack only just hung on to it.
Terrible feeling when you case out the double jump, not quite making it. It's so hard on the body.
Pretty hard too, I'd reckon, on the bike, and then he had up a big, big slide and only just hung on to that.
Good move by Dack there. Just blocking Stephen Andrew out of the way. Nothing dirty, but couldn't go anywhere else.
Daryl King, K, in 3rd place now. Good stuff, great competition between these two. Dack building up confidence and speed, going to the lead, building up a little bit of a margin over 4, Stephen Andrew. Good form here from the Team Yamaha Australia rider.
Doing everything very well. Dacky's riding a lot smoother than I have seen him do for quite some time. If he keeps this up, he is a good chance for the final, and it'll be good for him to do it.
Won't that final be a beauty? It's 20 laps, and where, of course, all the top riders come together, and they go for $15,000, the biggest prize money they've ever bumped and thumped and jumped their way to.
Exactly, Will.
Big chance. 21 there in trouble, and John Ashby.
20 laps for $15,000. It's good money. It's basically $1,000 a minute. So we haven't seen that in Australia for a long time.
It is not bad. Bigger money than they get in most of the Supercrosses in America. And talking with Eddie Warren, he thought it was the biggest that had ever been around. He was pretty impressed by it.
Enough to make Greg Norman laugh.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, wave a club or a racket, and you wouldn't even consider taking it out of its wraps, would you, for that? 3 completed now in this 5-lapper. The first semi-final. Craig Dack.
Track's starting to cut up a bit. You can see there's a few bumps there and tossing the bikes up and down. Not much of a problem for Dacky. He's got it under control.
Give them a groove through some of the, and looking back there, 3rd and 4th. So that's K is Darryl King, from S, Shane King. Both of them from New Zealand, and 2 top riders from over there.
Yes, the 2 New Zealand brothers battling it out.
Suddenly learning that they travel fast in Australia.
Well, they're fully aware of Dacky. He went over there in '86 and cleaned up their New Zealand motocross titles, so they know what it's all about.
Four completed now, 700 metres to an assured place in the final. And also the chance for him just to start building his own confidence. Looseness but control, speed, power on early, sliding around, trying to make 1 jump out of 2 for the final. And 4 getting bottled up there, that's Andrew.
Stephen's not actually letting Dacky get away too much, so that's good for him because he knows he can hang in there. If he can do that for the 15 laps in the final, that'll be good.
At the moment, it is Dak, and not very far from victory, but by gee, at any time, the slightest slip can bring them unstuck. Busy, busy, busy as he heads to the finishing line, and it is the checkered flag for the Dak attack. Craig Dack for Yamaha Australia in 1st place. In 2nd place on number 4 is Stephen Andrew. So it's Yamaha's 1 and 2.
Followed by Darryl King and then brother Shane.
K and S into 3rd and 4th place for New Zealand.
Well, Craig, that's the semi-final out of the way. The big one coming up soon.
Well, the big one, the important one. The important thing with these ones is get comfortable on the bike, get your lines sorted out. And I had a look around then for some passing lines, which is also very important. So if things go to plan, I feel very comfortable and confident for the final.
The 2nd semi-final, again, a packed 18-rider field. A and B grade riders, it's the 250cc's. The top 10 through into the final. The others pack up, go home, thank you very much. No chance at $15,000. So have a look at the quality here. 1, Glenn Bell. 5 beside him, Dean Burt. D, Darryl Atkins from Team Honda Australia. 33 is Jason Marshall, and 22 is Lee Hogan. 6 is Ben Parisi. Didn't run so well in his heat. Stephen Maguire's on 10 and on 11. Tony Fenton. 15 is Dale Britton. 32 is Max Kettle, and E is Eddie Warren from the States. 19's Phil Robinson, normally a good hard runner. Been a bit out of it tonight. Glenn Poole on 14. 27 is Derek Blacker. 91 is Michael Matthews. These are the people that came through from the semi-final. And 23, Paul Roman for Recaro seats because his old man runs the business. Tension time. And now it all cuts loose and bursts and shrieks and hopefully doesn't crash. And Eddie Warren's into the lead, and ahead of number 5, Dean Burt. Dean Burt ahead of Eddie Warren, and then Glenn Bell also on 1.
Nice move. Belly sneaked up into 2nd place, going through the roughest part of the course.
Storming up the hill and in the nicest part of the field. Up in front. Clear, make the ruts and let the others sort them out. Warren's 3rd. Burt still holding off Glenn Bell. Dean Burt can go hard, and he's doing so now. Has he been waiting? Is he on form? Good enough to challenge Dak, and oh dear no.
Oh, the pressure was on. He just couldn't handle it at that time.
Faster first lap by about a second for Glenn Bell over Craig Dack. And Andrew, in the previous semi-final, they did a 49.2 there for the standing lap. And it is Bell from Eddie Warren in second, KTM.
Be interesting to see whether Eddie can keep up with Glenn. He hasn't been really on form since he's joined the KTM team. He just doesn't quite look comfortable on that bike.
Ben Paracy's in third place on 6. And 32 in behind him is Max Kettle. But this man's building up a nice buffer. Right down to the back of the machine as he jumped, then getting forward on the tank almost as he came through the corner. Watch the form, watch the physical side of it. You've seen people just after a race, they're pumping air, they're sweating. They've worked very, very hard in 5 minutes.
Nobody sweats as much as Glenn Bell. He gets off after a 2-lap race and it's just like a tap.
Perhaps he can get himself a deodorant commercial. Glenn Bell looking very good. Wasn't he good over those stutters there too?
Yes, he is.
He really kept the thing flying. Stutters can be very slow if you get out of sync.
Exactly, Will. Glenn's very strong and he rides with a lot of strength. Whereas the difference between Dacky flows a little bit more than Glenn, but Glenn seems to muscle his way through.
When it kicked up hard at the front then, he still kept the speed on.
He's a ball of muscle. He does a bit of weight training, and you should see the guy with his shirt off. He could be an Iron Man.
Crossed up there, he still had his foot up. Even when he's sliding, doesn't get the foot down a lot, nor do some of the others. Eddie Warren there on E.
Well, Glenn was brought up with trials riding, you know, with the slow speed. And
oh, that's beautiful. Wasn't that nice on the brakes?
Very well handled through there. Just feet up, had the thing drifting.
And Burt in 5 is back there in 5th place, actually. Eddie Warren in 2nd. Behind him on 6 is Ben Paracy. 10 is in behind him, Stephen Maguire. Then it's 5, Dean Burt. Man had a brief glimpse of glory, but he can't stay with Glenn Bell.
Well, it's all leading up to be an interesting final. If these two can get out a decent start together, Dacky and Bell, I think, going to be in for a big show.
6 and 10, now that's a battle. Ben Paracy and Stephen Maguire, they're in third and fourth place, yes. They're behind Bell and Warren immediately, and they go off on their final lap. So, 1 lap to resolve third between 6, Ben Paracy, and 10, Maguire. Ran well in one of the early qualifiers, Maguire, but had a fall. In fact, he ended up having a couple of falls, but was very fast. At least here, he's hanging on to one of the top positions. Top 10 on into the final. Glenn Bell, one of the toppest of the 10. Really tremendous form. Just watch the fluidity, the muscle, the early throttle on, the confidence with the thing sliding, feet up often.
Certainly showing why he's won 6 out of the 7 events this year.
And headed to the checkered flag, which is his almost throughout this season so far. And he comes over the line some 6 seconds ahead of the American Eddie Warren, a second a lap to Glenn Bell for Team Honda Australia on bike number 1. And into 3rd place came Ben Paracy, 4th place Stephen Maguire, 5th place Dean Burt on 5.
You're looking forward to this clash with Craig Dack in the final?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, Craig's a great competitor, and but as I said before, I've been on top of him and won the last 4 Supercrosses, so I feel pretty good, and I feel like I'm on a roll. The Honda's running very well, and I just hope tonight will be another one.
All fired up now for the juniors final. 14 and 15-year-olds over 10 laps, racing for $4,650, $1,000 for first place, and 23 there is just one of the enormous field. Richie Hardman, 44 is Paul Grant, and 12 is Cameron McFarlane, and 7 is Peter Lowcock, and 8 is Fonzie Mullen, and 39 Clint Jarvis Thompson, 166 is Gobert, and 52 is Ashkenazi, and 10 is the New Zealander, 5, Joshua Donald, and 3, Jason Webster. Gobert first and second in the two previous races as they jump unevenly. As you can see, 5 going nowhere. Joshua Donald totally caught up in the thing. He's bent the starting gate, and that's his fault, no one else's. It falls backwards, and if you're up against it as they go out after Ashkenazi. 23 in second place is Richie Hardman.
Well, Gobert's gone past Ashkenazi in that tight left-hand turn, but Ashkenazi's come back on the hill.
So they are getting serious now.
As Ashkenazi leads coming down into the first set of jumps.
$1,000 for first, $800 for second. Good money for a 14 or a 15-year-old. Anthony Gobert on 166. Got his sights set on the grand. Kim Ashkenazi says, I want it too. And it really will get down to that to some extent. Who wants it most?
Yes, well, they've both been tussling over the last 12 months or whatever, but I think it's going to be close here. Ashkenazi's been winning the majority of the races this year, so it'll be interesting.
Amazing for these young guys to have the factory support that they have from Honda and from Suzuki, to be making as much money and to be concentrating so hard on their sport. And a sport as unusual as this one, because you don't learn it at school.
And most of them still going to school. Gobert's pulling out a little bit of a lead on Ashkenazi, which is pretty unusual, especially earlier in the race.
And 10 back there, Stacey Oldman doing a good job, third place, but suddenly rounded up Paul Grant. So Oldman, the New Zealander who'd won a heat earlier on, then pushed back on the Kawasaki, but coming back at him again and looking admirably determined. Good on you, fighting.
And Paul Grant's doing a good job there. Oldman looked so good in the earlier heat.
One went tight and one went wide, and that was the difference.
And that's it, Paul Grant off into the distance.
This is the race leader, Anthony Gobert, 166, Team Honda, Australia. 15 years old, he's had first and a second on the night in the reverse order. He was second in the first of these junior races. He's got 3 laps completed now in a 10-lapper. Just to keep the concentration up for nearly 10 minutes. Physical effort, and there's a lot of that.
Certainly riding consistently tonight. Pulling out one nice lead.
Big lead now over Kim Ashkenazi, the Suzuki Australia Gus Liu Motorcycles entry. And then 44, Paul Grant, Suzuki Australia Bob Campbell Motorcycle. All of them from New South Wales, dominating this junior Supercross final at Calder Park. Gobert, this man, nobody's got an answer to the speed that he can produce on Honda 166.
No doubt about it, Will. These younger guys are looking better every year.
Very hard guys to toss, and they don't do times very far off what the seniors are doing on similar machinery. These, of course, 125s. Second place is Ashkenazi.
The only place where these young guys probably lose any distance towards the, say, 125 A graders would be over the really rough stuff where they don't quite have the strength, or where they're not quite as game and don't jump all the jumps in one go.
Mind you, they usually say of racing car drivers and motorcycle race riders, when they see a young guy going fast as he hasn't had a big accident yet, he doesn't know how much it hurts.
That's it, but the young guys,
they've had their accidents, haven't they?
They've been there, they've done it also.
But they mend quickly, I suppose. That's the other thing. This is Gobert. Coming to complete now 5, and that's half distance. Halfway to the grand. This man's halfway to $800, not 8,000. 4,650. Good money down to Well, I was going to say down to 10th place. That's $50. I don't suppose you'd call that good money. 8th place is 200. 7th is 300. 6th is 400. 5th, 500. And 4th and 5th place.
That's Oldman and Fonzie Mullen.
Oh, and nearly pulls it back on himself. Not quite in a nearly sense, but he was starting to. And behind him, Fonzie Mullen, Yamaha from Victoria. Over the bridge and up to the top. And the race leader, been through there, heading down to complete lap 6.
Doing it very well out in front. Fair bit of pressure on these young guys. A big crowd. Probably the best money they've had that I've seen for a long time. I wish they had that sort of money when I was riding in juniors.
Yes. Really Gobert in the position here to play it reasonably sensibly. This guy, Fonzie Mullins, just had a bit of unscheduled excitement. Gone places he shouldn't have gone, but is going again, and as you can see, not giving up at all. Track packing down there and starting to look even a little bit dusty. The race leader, though, untroubled and pretty well faultless. On lap 7. And very soon, he'll be on lap 8 about now.
Well, the distance seems to be staying pretty much the same between Gobert and Ashkenazi. Neither of them making any exceptional moves on each other.
So 52 in second place, that's Ashkenazi. Third place is 44, is Paul Grant. Fourth place, still 10. We see here, that's Ashkenazi.
He's got a smooth style, this young guy. As I said earlier, he's got a big future. Like, he's had a good upbringing. I think if he sticks with it, he could go places.
And third place, 44, in trouble, Paul Grant. He's come back to 5th place from the 3rd he was holding. This man, though, leading as he's done all the way, sorted them out on the first lap and has led across the finishing line every lap since. He's about to do it at the end of lap 8. So he has 2 remaining, about 1.4 kilometres, averaging about 50 kilometres an hour.
Ashkenazi looks like he's dropped back a little, I think.
Very fluid style, kicks the bike working well. Somehow everything seems to follow well, and 9 down. Jason Rosano was in 6th place when he fell very quickly, receiving good treatment and reasonably quickly recovering too. Very easy to lock a lot of air out of your stomach in falls on these sorts of things. Getting tangled up with the machine, or if it lands on top of you, or get the fuel tank in the guts.
Well, it's nothing worse. You could be laying there, you're winded, you can't tell anyone about it. All you're doing is gasping for breath.
And look at this one, a beauty! Great battle there between 10.
That's Stacey Oldman and
Oh dear. Dear old
big effort.
Fonzie Mullen.
Oh, well,
so easy to get dragged in that situation.
You must try these things.
Here's Gobert, halfway through his final lap, coming up to the top of the hill, and well on the way to $1,000. In the foreground there, over to the right, Jason Webster. He's pulled up 2 on the Nana Goon Honda. There here in Victoria. The race leader's from New South Wales, and he rides for Honda Australia, and his name's Anthony Gobert, and he's been flawless in this race. A junior with a lot of talent comes across the finishing line to be victorious and to pick up $1,000 Australian dollars, which will be very handy indeed, coming home ahead of the man that he so often races against and is sometimes beaten by, Kim Ashkenazi, the Suzuki Australia entry, number 52.
How was it there in the final?
It was pretty tough with Kim and Stacey also rode just as hard. was lucky enough to get past Cam early and got a bit of a gap, and once I got the gap, that's where it stayed the whole race.
The second last race of the night is the A and B grade final on 125cc machines. It's 10 laps, it's $4,650, $1,000 for first place, and they will all be trying hard. Many of them riders will be in the 250cc final, like Eddie Warren and Darrell Atkins from New Zealand on D, and 12, Mark Kirkman, and 7 to his right, Lyndon Heffernan from Outrider Yamaha, and T, Troy Mackesy, and 9, Troy Doran, and 18, Jason Andrew, and 17, Craig Andrews, 15, Cameron Taylor, 20 will come back to, 28 is Darren Garlick, and 34, Glenn Smith, 16 is Stan Bergen, 26 is Nigel Arnold, and 10, Paul Timmins, and 60, good on you, Tracy Ann Brooks. A grand for first place. Nearly, or more than $4,500 for the race. And if you get left out of the squash, you're nowhere. And funneling through underneath the tunnel is Darrell Atkins from New Zealand. Eddie Warren from the United States is in second place, and 9 pancakes it down is Troy Doran. And he says, I don't like this game, I'm off. And behind him, further back, Doran, actually not very sensibly, he'd been better to stay with the bike, but charged across the front of the field. But the man that they're after is Darrell Atkins, the 19-year-old from New Zealand, who started racing 12 years ago. He's been on bikes a long time, and he nearly kicked it off himself there. And Eddie Warren's come up onto him on the KTM.
Yeah, Darrell Atkins dropping short on those short jumps there, just allowing Eddie to close up, but not quite enough.
And the crowd encouragement now is building up. They're starting to charge them onwards, but they've got dollar signs in their eyes, these guys, and they don't need much charging. Darrell Atkins, Eddie Warren, D and E, and 7, Lyndon Heffernan. At 17 in behind him, Craig Andrews.
Well, this is basically the finishing order of their last heat, I think, Will.
And 12, Mark Kirkman. Yes, it's fairly similar. With Atkins serving up to Warren and saying, the way that happened, of course, was that Warren led most of that race and just nipped, Atkins just nipped by him on the last lap. This is twice as long a race. And will they swap the lead very much?
Well, we certainly hope so. It'll make it look good. 24-year-old
American Eddie Warren, very keen to do so. Second season as resident in Australia. He's the Australian 250 and 500cc motocross champion. Missed out on the 125, which this is, and where his KTM normally works best. Gave up after 12 years riding Kawasaki's to sign on with Bert Flood to ride a KTM. And hasn't gone as well.
No, he hasn't looked as comfortable on the KTMs. I don't think they have them as set up as he'd like to have them. A leading rider in America on the 125s. He was one of the best over there.
Bursting out of the top of section of the circuit. Down now, but still not able to find a way around Darrell Atkins. 5 years his junior. And on lap 4. Atkins, who sneaked by Warren in the last encounter. This one's the serious one, $1,000. $200 less for where Eddie Warren is at the moment. And 7, Lyndon Heffernan behind them is on, at the moment, $700. Fourth place is on $600.
Yeah, Eddie's starting to look a little bit out of shape there. He's trying pretty hard to stay with Atkins. Atkins riding very forcefully. I guess that's the reason Glenn Bell has him on his team.
And Warren's come back at him. Really come back at him. Very close. All but got him. All but done so. And Darrell Atkins gets untidy and really through the rear sideways. And Warren has not given up, and he charges now from the berm down into the tight exit, punching out of that. A lot of throttle on very early there, and then a slip. and he loses some lengths there.
He always seems to lose it on that section. Coming out from the top of the hill, that's where he gains a little on Atkins. Atkins riding well. He's not being bluffed by Eddie when he comes in and gives him a bit of a push.
And don't forget, further back on 7, Lyndon Heffernan. Not to be discounted. Coming into the picture more. 12's in 4th place. That's Mark Kirkman, and he's at the moment, by virtue of 4th place, on $600, which is not bad for 10 minutes work. Which is a way of simplifying it, because an enormous amount of practice and training and machine preparation goes into it. This is 4th place Kirkman. Lovely side shot. Beautiful. You see all the action that's involved. And every